In my past life, Leo was bitten by a rabid dog. Despite my sister-in-law Hazel's objections, I took my nephew to the hospital for a rabies vaccine. Only then was Leo spared from the disease, growing up healthy, but Leo never achieved anything academically. Hazel constantly told him that I had defied the shaman's rituals and that the vaccine's side effects had ruined his potential. Because of this, Leo harbored years of hatred for me. While I slept, he used a sickle to hack me to death. I opened my eyes and found myself back on the day Leo was bitten by the rabid dog. This time, I calmly carried a tray of tea, smiling as I watched Hazel invite the shaman to perform a spirit possession ritual for Leo. When I was fully conscious, the shaman was already on the platform, clad in bizarre attire, dancing wildly with a fierce expression. Leo was surrounded by them in the center, his wrist gushing blood, a piece of flesh torn away and dangling by a mere strip of skin. The villagers stared, eyes wide and brows furrowed. "Hazel, perhaps we should take the boy to the hospital first? You can see the bone in his wrist." "Yes, that wound looks terrifying. What if he loses too much blood?" "Exactly, look at your Leo, his lips are completely white." Hazel paid them no mind, crossing her arms over her chest. "What do you people know? This is the shaman from my hometown. He can cure any stubborn, incurable illness with just one ritual," she boasted, full of self-satisfaction. "Don't you worry about Leo's bleeding now. After the spirit possession ritual, I guarantee the blood will stop instantly." I couldn't help but let out a cynical laugh. Damn it, that's just his body's platelets desperately trying to stop the bleeding, and she's crediting the shaman for it. Hazel continued, "Besides, hospital medicines now have deadly side effects. I don't want my Leo to be cured of a wound only to contract a bunch of other illnesses." With that, she looked towards me, sitting in the sun by the door. "Hannah, you're a university student, you have broad knowledge. Tell me, doesn't my reasoning make sense?" My eyes stung slightly as I recalled my past life. Back then, I disregarded Hazel's and the shaman's protests, disrupted the ritual, and drove Leo to the hospital on an electric bike no matter what, getting him a rabies vaccine and protein serum, and having his wound stitched. Even the intern doctor treating Leo's wound unconsciously gritted his teeth, saying that if it had been an hour later, that piece of flesh might not have been salvageable. Hazel arrived late, suppressed by 7 or 8 doctors from the entire department, not daring to utter another word. But I noticed the hateful, teeth-gritting expression on her face. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to it, only thinking that I couldn't let my superstitious sister-in-law destroy my nephew's life. Because once rabies is contracted, the mortality rate is almost 100%. Later, Leo grew up healthy, and the timely stitched wound only left a faint scar. After my brother went to work far away, Hazel was busy with farm work and had no time to care for Leo, so she sent him to school very early. Leo was 3 years younger than his classmates, his brain not yet developed enough to absorb formal education, so poor academic performance was inevitable. But every time Hazel held Leo's test papers, covered in red X's, she would tell him, "The shaman's ritual would have solved everything, but your aunt didn't believe it. She broke the rules, called a great spirit, insisted on taking you to the hospital, injected you with so many solutions, made you drink so much medicine. Surely, the side effects ruined your brain development, it's all your aunt's fault." Leo initially didn't believe it, but his position at the bottom of the class persisted until he graduated middle school, planting the seeds of resentment in his heart, which eventually grew into a mighty tree. One holiday night, when I returned home for Tet, he used a sickle to hack me to death. My brother and Hazel returned from visiting relatives, saw the bloody scene, and hurriedly dumped my body in the mountains that very night. The next day, they spread the rumor that I had been gored to death by a wild boar in the mountains. At my funeral, Hazel even invited the shaman, claiming it was to cleanse Leo of bad karma. And there I was in a coffin, reeking, with not a single family member to mourn me. In the end, they simply hired a few people to dig a shallow grave in the mass burial ground and carelessly buried me. This was the family I had wholeheartedly dedicated myself to. I took a deep breath, met Hazel's expectant gaze, and smiled indifferently. Every medicine has its poisons, all drugs come with side effects. Hearing this, her face bloomed into a radiant smile. "See, even a university student says so. You village women, stop your chatter." The villagers shook their heads and left. This time, I wanted to see if my superstitious sister-in-law would regret her choices. The shaman circled Leo, muttering incomprehensible words in his throat. The blood on Leo's wrist slowly clotted, and the piece of flesh turned cold and stiff. The shaman then picked up a bowl of strong liquor, tilted his head back, took a gulp, and spat it onto Leo's wound. Then, with a swift motion, he grabbed a pair of scissors and snipped off the dangling piece of flesh. Leo's agonizing scream immediately tore through the silence of the mountains, startling 4 or 5 sparrows. The shaman scooped a bowl of ash from the campfire and leisurely sprinkled it over Leo's wound until it completely covered the bloodstains. My nephew eventually passed out entirely. "What are you doing?" It was the dog-catching team, responsible for handling stray, rabid dogs in the village. They had heard that my nephew had been bitten by a rabid dog and that Hazel hadn't taken him to the hospital, opting for a ritual instead. They pointed fingers at her, scolding, "You're truly foolish. It's the 21st century, how can there still be superstitious people like you? Do you know rabid dogs carry the rabies virus? Once it manifests, this child will die. I advise you to quickly take him to the hospital for a vaccine. If you wait beyond 24 hours, even vaccination won't help anymore." Hazel glared, then grabbed a basin of rice water and hurled it at the dog-catching team. "Why are you lot even more talkative than the shaman? Don't I know whether that dog was normal or not? Do I need you to tell me? Besides, doesn't everyone know your wife works at the hospital? Aren't you just trying to make me spend money there so your wife can profit? Everyone knows your intentions." The team leader, his pant legs soaked, held his team members back, trying to make Hazel understand the gravity of the situation. "Madam, this is truly serious. Firstly, I just saw your son's wrist, the bone is exposed, and there's blood everywhere. With your current treatment, be careful the wound doesn't get infected. Secondly, rabies cannot be underestimated. Its incubation period can be very long. Some dogs may not show symptoms, and your son might not either, temporarily. But the risk is very high. Once it manifests, the boy won't survive. Better safe than sorry." Hazel scoffed coldly. "Oh, the dog-catching team leader is quite cultured, aren't you? Better safe than sorry? What? Do you think knowing a few idioms makes you smart? Let me tell you, I've already had my son undergo the spirit possession ritual. Rabies or deafness, none of it will find him." Hazel scanned them with her eyes. "You people worry about doing your own job properly. If you can't even catch rabid dogs, I'll be coming to you for compensation." A young man in the dog-catching team couldn't take it anymore and stepped forward. "Captain, let's go. We're already spending our own money to catch rabid dogs. Doing good for the people and still getting dirty water thrown on us? Why bother talking to ignorant, superstitious people like this?" Hearing this, Hazel turned to grab a broom and unceremoniously chased the dog-catching team out. I sat cross-legged, enjoying my sister-in-law's triumph as if watching a play. That night, Leo had a high fever that wouldn't subside, vomiting and having diarrhea. Hazel grinned, slapping her thigh. "It's definitely the ritual's effect taking hold." She patted Leo's back, secretly reassuring him. "Son, the magic is working now. Vomit it out, vomit all the dirty things out. Once it's out, you'll be well." Leo's fever raged until 3 a.m., and he vomited green and yellow bile. Hazel was still clapping, praising the progress. Leo finally fainted from the fever. It wasn't until my brother returned from visiting relatives and found Leo's face so hot you could fry an egg on it, that he finally rushed him to the hospital. Outside the emergency room, my brother pointed at Hazel's face, scolding her painfully. "Do you want to kill Leo? Are you even his real mother?" Unaware of the gravity of the situation, Hazel vehemently retorted, "I'm not his real mother. Then why would I go so far to invite someone to perform a spirit ritual? If I'm not his real mother, why would I stay up all night watching him? He was injured, and I was the only one caring for him. You're his father, where were you?" Just as their argument escalated, a nurse emerged from the emergency room. "Who are Leo's family?" They rushed forward. "Leo's current condition is an improperly treated wound leading to infection. Also, the child definitely fell. He wasn't bitten by an animal, right?" My brother looked suspiciously at Hazel, then at me. I feigned innocence, and Hazel stammered, claiming he fell onto a harrow, which made it look like an animal bite. My brother looked to me for confirmation. Hazel, disgusted, pushed me away. "Doctor, my son just fell onto a harrow. He wasn't bitten by an animal." The nurse, half believing, returned to the emergency room. Afterward, a male doctor emerged, very serious and composed, and asked about the cause of the wound again. Hazel adamantly maintained that he had fallen onto a harrow. I laughed coldly to myself. If I hadn't known from my past life that it was a dog bite, I might have believed Hazel's performance too. I once thought it was caused by a harrow. On the 5th day of Leo's hospitalization, Hazel couldn't bear it any more and frantically demanded to go home. She grabbed my brother's collar and screamed, "Every medicine has its poisons. How many medicines has the hospital forced Leo to take? He's been on an IV for 5 days. Do you want him to carry a lifetime of illnesses later?" My brother finally compromised, and the whole family packed up and went home. On the way, we passed the small road where I had found the rabid dog's sudden death in my past life. In this life, the black dog with white paws that bit Leo, as told in their story, also died unexpectedly, tragically in the ditch. I raised my head. Ahead was the hill where my body had been dumped in my past life. The old pain resurfaced, but I pretended nothing was amiss, following them with an indifferent expression. Back home, I began researching the incubation period of rabies. I could no longer wait to see the outcome of this wicked family. The phone screen scrolled up. The short incubation period for rabies is 1 to 3 months, but in some long cases, it can be up to more than 10 years. It doesn't matter. In this life, no matter how long it takes, I am willing to wait. 3 years later, I passed my graduate school entrance exams. My brother in the village decided to host a celebration for me. A celebration, yes, but in reality, he wanted to seize the opportunity to make some money. I didn't want to do it. I coldly refused. Hazel mockingly taunted me with a bitter tone. "Some people, huh? The first thing they do after finding success is forget their roots. Your brother and I paid your tuition, gave you living expenses, and now we're organizing a party for you. Can't we even recoup a little money? You don't even need to spend your own money or effort." Leo also chimed in. "I say, Aunt Hannah reading books isn't even as good as raising a dog. A dog at least knows how to guard the house." I shrugged. "Fine, do it then." The party was held as planned. At the dinner table, my brother pulled Leo, who was in 7th grade, towards them. He lavished praise, then introduced him. "My son Leo is now top of his class." The relatives followed suit with compliments, "So promising, he's sure to get into a good university later." Hazel happily added, "His aunt barely ever studies but still gets into university, even graduate school. My Leo is so diligent and hardworking, he's definitely going to be even more promising." If his aunt, a girl, can pass exams and get out, then Leo getting into a prestigious school and earning lots of money is a sure thing. I say, it's good we're celebrating early. A crowd of relatives chattered and laughed as if I didn't exist. But Leo, who usually loved showing off and would be over the moon with a single compliment, was a little off. "Mom, I can't eat today, I want to sleep." My brother and Hazel suddenly fell silent. The three of them looked at Leo, saying nothing. She delivered a resounding slap to Leo's left cheek. "Can't eat, want to sleep? These past few days you've been faking it, not sweeping the house, not washing dishes, not even finishing your homework. Don't you know what day it is today? Do you want to pretend to be sick again and just lie around playing on your phone?" Leo was about to explain when Hazel cut him off. "Don't even dream about it. At the very least, you have to greet all the relatives. Your eldest uncle and aunt traveled a long way. Can't you be a little more sensible?" Tears welled up in Leo's eyes, but he had no choice but to follow my brother and Hazel, greeting relatives, until late into the night. Leo covered his ears, terrified, and ran upstairs, clutching my leg tightly. "Auntie, why is it so noisy? I'm scared." He cowered beside my leg, pressing his index fingers firmly into his ears, trembling with fear. I froze for a few seconds. He had never called me Auntie before. In fact, he had never even looked directly at me. Every year when I returned, he only knew to hold out his hand for lucky money. If I didn't give it, he'd throw himself on the ground, wailing tragically. His hatred for me was all learned and taught by my brother and Hazel. At their family reunion dinners, I had always been just a lonely soul taking up an extra pair of chopsticks. Now, Leo's trembling hand pulled at my pant leg. A sudden ding went off in my head, and an eerie smile involuntarily crept onto my lips. He's finally showing symptoms. "Hazel, Leo isn't well." Hazel, deep in her drinking, shot me a glance. "Kids fake sickness, why are adults playing along? Do you think you're still a student?" Hazel continued drinking with her friends. "Hazel, Leo has a slight fever and he's very uncomfortable. He trembles with fear at every sound." My brother pushed me away. "Hannah, didn't you hear what your sister-in-law said? Even I can tell Leo is faking it and you're a university student. Don't you have any sense?" I leaned in close to Hazel's ear, probing. "Hazel, have you considered the possibility of rabies? After all, Leo was bitten by a rabid dog when he was little." At just that one sentence, everyone at the table put down their wine cups, silently looking at Hazel. Her expression, unlike everyone else's, instead burst into laughter, spitting out a mouthful of wine. "Hannah, have you been reading books until your brain turned to mush? That happened ages ago. Rabies. If it were going to manifest, wouldn't it have by now? I think you've become a bookworm. You should hurry up and find a man to marry." The whole table erupted in laughter. 2 or 3 familiar relatives came forward to introduce potential suitors to me. "I say, Scruffy at the end of the village still hasn't found a wife, has he? And Hannah, no one has wanted you for years. Do you want to consider Scruffy?" Scruffy was mentally challenged, with neurological issues, slurred speech, constantly drooling, and completely dependent on the villagers for alternating handouts of food to survive. I brushed their hands away, but unexpectedly, Leo, covering his ears, ran downstairs from the second floor and burrowed into Hazel's arms, his eyes darting nervously, still trembling and covering his ears. He looked as if he was terrified by some ghost, muttering, "Don't be loud, don't be loud." My brother and Hazel, both drunk, cursed Leo a few times, but Leo remained frozen in place, refusing to go back to his room. The phone my brother had given him was also thrown to the ground. Hazel immediately pinched Leo's ear, dragging and pulling him, and locked him in the second-floor bedroom. I sat in the living room, smiling, watching my brother and Hazel continue to entertain their guests. I opened my phone and searched for the initial symptoms of rabies: inexplicable fear, difficulty swallowing, headaches, hydrophobia, fear of water, aerophobia, fear of drafts, spasmodic choking, difficulty breathing, problems with urination and defecation, excessive sweating, drooling. The final stage is flaccid paralysis. Once symptoms appear, death can occur within approximately 7 to 10 days. 7 days, I joyfully chuckled aloud in my room. Looks like I'll have to wake up early and sleep late, otherwise it'll be easy to miss the good show. "What's Hannah laughing about?" someone asked. "She must be thinking about marrying Scruffy. Once she has a man by her side, she'll be so happy she'll forget everything else." Another round of laughter erupted. The next day, I woke up to a horrifying sound. It was Hazel's voice. "Leo, what's wrong with you?" Hazel was tightly clutching Leo, who was convulsing violently like a trapped animal, anxiously calling my brother. I stood coldly by, watching the drama I had waited 3 years for unfold. In my past life, Leo, instigated by Hazel, had hacked me to death. My brother and Hazel hadn't cared at all, not even choosing a burial plot for me. Human hearts can be cold beyond description. But I wanted to exact double the revenge from them. Only then could my brother and Hazel truly feel what it was like to be hacked to death, the pain of being betrayed and abandoned by loved ones. For so many years, Leo had been her life, her tool to oppress me, her source of arrogance, her capital to lord over the villagers. Leo's demise would surely shatter her. My brother and Hazel took him to the hospital. After a long observation, the doctor took an A4 paper and fanned it towards Leo. Leo, terrified, burrowed straight into Hazel's arms, his body still convulsing uncontrollably, fear gripping him as if he were suffocating. The doctor, after diagnosis, kept shaking his head. "Has your child been bitten by any animal recently?" My brother and Hazel repeatedly waved their hands, looking at each other blankly. No. He just came back from summer break. How could he have been bitten by an animal?" The doctor poured another glass of water and offered it to Leo. Leo licked his lips, thirsty, and reached for the water. But as soon as the water trembled, the muscles in his neck suddenly tensed, and he jumped straight off the hospital bed in terror, the glass shattering on the floor in a messy heap. Hazel tearfully embraced him. Leo is clearly very thirsty, but why such a strong reaction to water? "It's hydrophobia," the doctor stated. I feigned innocence and asked the doctor, "What is hydrophobia, doctor?" Hydrophobia is also known as rabies, primarily transmitted through the saliva of infected animals. That's why I asked you from the beginning, was the child bitten by a dog or cat? Hazel's eyes widened in shock. "But our Leo wasn't bitten by a dog or cat. Is your diagnosis wrong, doctor?" "Impossible. The child's current symptoms are identical to rabies. If it truly is rabies, I'm afraid the child won't live beyond 7 days. My brother grabbed the old doctor by the collar. 7 days? What the hell are you talking about? We told you, he hasn't been bitten by an animal recently." The old doctor saw the veins bulging on my brother's arm and trembled with fear. "Not recently. How about in the past few years? Some rabies cases have long incubation periods. Why wouldn't it be possible? 3 years ago, Leo was bitten by a dog, losing a piece of flesh. At that time, his mother even invited a shaman to perform a ritual." Hearing this, Hazel suddenly looked horrified, collapsing onto her knees in front of the clinic door. My brother saw her reaction and slowly let go of the doctor. What's wrong? Hazel repeated in disbelief. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. It's been 3 years. That dog was completely normal back then. When I chased it away, it even barked at me. How could it have carried the rabies virus? I squatted down, using my finger to brush away a lock of hair from Hazel's eyes. Hazel, that year, the dog-catching team said better safe than sorry. But we did go to the hospital then, didn't we? We went to the hospital the next day to treat the wound. I chuckled. We did indeed take Leo to get his wound treated, but at that time, both the nurse and the doctor came out and asked you where Leo's wound came from. You lied twice, didn't you, saying he fell onto a harrow? My brother clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking. Hazel, damn it, are you insane? Your son was bitten by a dog, why did you hide it and not say anything? Hazel was stunned by the scolding, unable to argue, she just tightly hugged Leo. Didn't I not want Leo to take medicine that would leave side effects? You know, medicines nowadays have very severe side effects. I gloated, looking at her. So, do you want your son to die from rabies, or do you want to avoid those insignificant side effects? Hazel angrily pushed me away. It's you. Why didn't you take Leo? You knew the side effects weren't a big deal. Why didn't you take Leo for the rabies vaccine? It's tragically funny. In my past life, I defied her wishes. I rode a small electric bike for 2 hours in the cold wind just to take Leo for the rabies protein serum. What was the result? The result was that in Leo's later struggles as he grew up, even after I tutored him in all his subjects, he still targeted me, spitting at me. Even though I gave up my part-time job opportunities and spent my own money to come back and help with the harvest, didn't I just become a servant for this family? Even though I used my scholarship money to buy New Year's gifts for everyone, wasn't I still like a stranger to them at the dinner table? In the end, I was hacked to death and dumped in a mass grave. Now, how is it my fault? My brother grabbed Hazel's hand as she tried to slap me. Enough, the important thing now is to quickly find a cure for Leo. My brother turned, desperately asking the old doctor, "Doctor, can my son truly not be saved?" The doctor shook his head helplessly. Hazel, with a kick, overturned his examination table. "Quack, I don't believe it. A simple rabies disease and no one in all of China can cure it." I watched the furious, indignant couple storm out, smiling triumphantly. They don't know that this disease cannot be cured by anyone, not just in China, but in the entire world. My brother and Hazel took Leo all over the province, searching, but ultimately returned empty-handed, quietly going home. By now, Leo had become incredibly irritable, shouting insults at the slightest provocation, sometimes even exhibiting aggressive behavior. Furthermore, hearing the wind or seeing water would cause him extreme fear and anxiety. Even someone walking by, creating a slight breeze, would cause Leo's body to convulse uncontrollably. And the prolonged difficulty in swallowing led to malnutrition, his face gaunt like a stripped skeleton. Most terrifyingly, in the dead of night, he would emit blood-curdling screams. Villagers passing by their house all wore uneasy expressions, until a neighbor, who was not on good terms with Hazel, came to their door to scold her, and immediately the entire village gathered outside their house. Hazel wiped away her tears, explaining it was rabies, but some people didn't believe her. I've looked up information about rabies. The documents don't say anything about screaming at night. Those screams are terrifying. I don't dare turn off my bedside lamp anymore. Or maybe it's some evil spirit. The mention of an evil spirit caused everyone to chatter nervously until someone in the crowd shouted loudly, "It is asterisk an evil spirit. 3 years ago, she invited someone to perform a spirit possession ritual. I'm afraid she invited an evil deity that couldn't be sent away. Oh dear, what are we to do then?" At first, we told her to take her child to the hospital, but she called us country bumpkins. It's all your fault. How many people advised you to take Leo for the vaccine back then? You didn't listen. It serves Leo right to suffer like this. Hazel's face was a complicated mix of bitterness and sourness. She had thought her ordinary village friends and relatives would be sympathetic and offer advice, but instead, she was met with nothing but accusations. After sending the villagers away, Hazel completely broke down, collapsing onto the ground and crying loudly. Then she pulled my brother upstairs to care for Leo. When I went to the restroom that night, I saw them whispering by Leo's room door. We worked so hard to raise him, and she repays our kindness with malice, harming Leo. I just called the master who performed the spirit ritual that year. He said the evil spirit in our house is possessing a woman. If she doesn't leave, all our luck will dwindle. But in this house, there are only two women, me and her. If it's not her, who is this evil spirit? My brother pondered, then nodded. I sneered. Even he believed these words. What a waste of his high school education. Leo, using a cane, walked out, echoing Hazel's words. It's Hannah. I suspect several times I didn't get first place in my final exams, it was because she cursed me. She also tattled to the teacher, badmouthing me. What else could a woman with such an evil heart be but an evil spirit? I leaned against the wall, helpless, listening to this family's bizarre views, my last shred of hope completely dissolving. Then I overheard them planning to sell me to Scruffy and hold a wedding to bring good fortune. When we do it, that girl is very arrogant. She definitely won't go willingly. Tomorrow night, while she's sound asleep, we'll tie her up. The next day, we'll hold the good fortune wedding. Too bad for tomorrow night. Because tonight, I will reunite your whole family in another world. At 5:00 a.m., I was in Hazel's bedroom, burning a calming incense stick. Then I gently opened Leo's bedroom window and with one swift cut, severed the water pipe on the roof. Water cascaded down from the third floor. In just 3 seconds, Leo's bedroom filled with frantic thrashing and muffled cries. I opened the gas valve and then went back to my room to sleep. The next morning, a little after 10 a.m., an earth-shattering explosion erupted from the second floor, followed by a fierce blaze. I, feigning panic, ran out from the first floor and, witnessed by the villagers, collapsed by the roadside, weeping desperately. I had to lie down, otherwise others might see. A barely suppressed smile played on my lips. This massive explosion, caused by a gas leak, directly deafened Hazel, while my brother, in an attempt to save her, perished in the inferno. Leo had already died last night from fear, convulsing continuously until he struggled to breathe, ultimately suffocating to death. Hazel finally jumped from the third floor, her lower body shattered, leaving her bedridden for life, compounded by the double shock of Leo's and my brother's deaths. Her mind became unhinged. Initially, she would mistake me for Leo, calling to check on my life outside, even phoning me during nightmares, saying she would care about my well-being. I found her pathetic, and perhaps I was also drawn to it. The warmth of family, which I had never known, combined with her delusions, allowed me to weave this beautiful dream. Until one day, she called me again. Leo, are you coming home for Tet? Your parents are waiting for you. We're planning to sell your little aunt so we can buy you a new house in the city. Your little aunt is a graduate student. She'll definitely fetch a good price. I pulled the phone away, revealing my entire face, a distorted, complex expression. Hazel, it's Hannah, I'm not Leo. Didn't you kill Leo yourself? That year, he was bitten by a rabid dog, and you insisted on not taking him for the vaccine. He eventually died from convulsions, suffocating. My brother also died, burnt to death in the huge fire trying to save you. On the other end of the line, her breathing became ragged, her eyes unfocused, her mouth twitching. No, it wasn't me. That dog was normal. It was you. You killed them. That dog died on our way home. You clearly saw it. Didn't you realize? Did I see? No, I didn't. Hazel, admit it. You killed them. Hazel's face contorted fiercely as she leaned closer to the phone. No, in the past life. Clearly, Leo never got sick in the past life, proving that dog was healthy. Leo wasn't infected with the rabies virus. It must have been the side effects of the hospital medicine that made Leo. I froze in place, my legs feeling like they were encased in concrete. She was talking about the past life. Could she also have been reborn? Her lucid, malicious eyes fixated on me. In the past life, you told me to give him the rabies vaccine. Do you think he didn't get sick because he wasn't infected with the virus himself? Foolish. That was the effect of the protein serum. Her hair disheveled, she spoke frantically. Impossible. Her mind drifting between lucidity and madness, she suddenly pointed at my screen. So, do you dare say the rabies vaccine has no side effects? In this life, Leo's grades are always top-notch. In the past life, he wasn't first place. Isn't that your fault? I rolled my eyes helplessly. Hazel, in the past life, Leo started first grade at 5 years old. He was just a child, only knew how to follow you to cut grass for the pigs. How could he understand first-grade knowledge when his brain hadn't even fully developed? How could he be first place? Even if the rabies vaccine had huge side effects, did you want Leo to live a normal life, or did you want him to cling to a glimmer of hope, endure suffering, and die? One can be ignorant, but one should not, when ignorant, refuse to accept sound advice from others. A month later, I received news from the mental hospital. Hazel had swallowed glass in the middle of the night, committing suicide. Hearing the news, I stood rooted to the spot for a long time, unable to move. I returned home for the second time to arrange a funeral. Of course, I buried all three of them neatly in the same mass grave as in my past life. I never forgave them, even though they had received their deserved karma. On the night of the burial, I rode that old electric bike away from the place I used to call home in reality, a tomb. The night wind howled faintly. The moon hung over the mountaintops, and I switched on my flashlight, speeding through the darkness. Actually, as a child, I was very afraid of the dark and afraid of ghosts, so I always feared sleeping alone. At that time, my parents died in the line of duty, and only my frail grandmother was willing to stay by my side. But the year I graduated high school, my grandmother also passed away. The day I received my admission letter to a prestigious university, Hazel came up with the idea of selling me. That night, my brother, following Hazel's words, planned to capture me and sell me to a nouveau rich man in the neighboring village. Upon hearing this, I didn't hesitate to plunge into the night. I walked through the mountains under just enough moonlight to illuminate the path until dawn. From that day on, I no longer feared being homeless, nor did I fear the dark or ghosts. After a day and a night, I finally returned to my rented room in the north to study. Yeah,